Hello, my crafty friends. It's Michelle, the Southern Shell, and I am here with the Just Our Imagination Challenge. This one was a little difficult for me. Thank you, ladies, for challenging my brain. We had to use paper towels, we had to use a belt, and we had to use a Swiffer duster. Oh my goodness. Let's just dive into project number one.
I'm pouring glue into water.
You're pour the whole bottle or that whole jar in there. That's fine. We're just gonna pour that all in there.
Pour, 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 pour.
Okay, let's put some water in the jar. And then we'll shake it. Ooh, you're getting glue all over the sink. That's okay. All right, shake that around a little bit.
Shaky, shaky, shaky. I don't like get glue.
All right.
Whoa.
Whoa. Okay.
That's a lot of glue.
We are going to get
That's
a paint
not
stick
glue.
and take it outside. What you doing?
I'm gonna squish this and I'm gonna put it in the glue and then squish it.
All right, let me see. Go ahead.
I'm gonna put these down.
Here, I'll hold.
You hold
Yes, I will.
Thanks.
All the way in the water and glue. Stick your whole hands in there. All of it. You have to. And then you got to pull it out and squeeze. Squeeze. There you go. And then pick it up. Don't squeeze it all out. And then kind of shake your towel. Watch that Gigi show you. So I've got my paper towel. I'm going to stick it in my water and glue. I'm going to go like this. So it's nice and sloppy. And then I'm going to go. That didn't work. Let's soak them in the water. Go ahead and put it in the water. One at a time.
Whoa, you put two in.
Yep. Drop yours in there.
Yep.
Okay, let's let that sit a minute.
That did not work. What are we supposed to do?
Well, we're going to let that soak up some water. And
Yeah. Let me just stir a little with the paper towels to make it nice and good.
nice and gloopy. I think we have too much water in it, but that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, there's one more in there. Try to hit it right here. Awesome. That's it. Should we do a couple more?
Yeah.
So that took longer than expected, but it was fun. You see all the grass on here? I did dust off what I could, but he kept missing the canvas and hitting the grass under the willow tree. But it was perfect. We had so much fun doing this. I picked up some twigs that I had. I have a container marked twigs. My husband laughs at me, but it works to have these things in my craft room. I know that's kind of silly, but it was perfect. I took my hot glue gun after I realized which way I was going to go, and I glued these onto my canvas. Now, why did I glue these onto my canvas? Because after 2 days of drying, I was able to continue looking at these splats of paper towel and decide what they look like to me. All of a sudden, I seen fish. Yeah, now if you look hard enough, you can see fish. Now that little bottom one doesn't look like a fish, but all the others have fish similarities. There you go, similarities. So I glued the branches down because I wanted this to actually look like coral instead of, just having branches there. But this turned out fine. So I took my hot glue gun, I made sure those sticks were glued properly down to my canvas, and it took several glue sticks to do this. Now my fingers are pretty used to the hot glue, so guys, don't try this with your fingers. Use your finger protectors if you're gonna do this. Of course, I should have used a sander or at least a piece of sand to knock off some of that bark on there, but this turned out fine. I used my glue gun to create other smaller branches to come off of my little sticks. I think this is the most glue sticks I've used on a project, but that's just fine. I mean, that's what it's for, is it not? You can use hot glue sticks for many different things, and this time I'm using it to create coral. Yep, that's going to be coral. I went ahead and took it outside once everything was dry and on there, and I spray painted it with my flat white, my Rust-Oleum flat white. And now I'm coming back in with more glue sticks, and I think I used probably, probably about another 6 more on this stage. Now, what I'm doing is I'm covering those sticks with hot glue, and then I'm coming in along the edge and wiping it so it kind of curves under that branch. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to give me I'm hoping it's not going to look like a stick when I'm done. It's not going to have all the stick roughness, but it should still give us a little bit of that coral look. And I think it did okay. I went ahead and covered the ends of my sticks also with that hot glue so it doesn't look like a broken stick branch. I'm actually using one of my resin tools here to help spread that out. It has a silicone tip and a metal ball tip that's a little curved, and this worked out perfect for this particular project. It was just what I needed here. Time to paint. I am using my white Waverly chalk paint to go all over this. Now, once again, I used my Mod Podge and the paper towels and water to splat them on this canvas. I spray painted it down with some Rust-Oleum white spray paint, and now I'm coming in with my Waverly white chalk paint, and I ran out of my spray paint. You can still see that these are paper towels. Well, you can still see that my paper towels were colored, and so I wanted to come in and make sure that I had a base. Now it's time to come in and give us color. I told y'all that when I stared at this for a couple days while it was drying, that I seen fish. So I created a clownfish coral reef, and I think it does turn out pretty cute. So I just have some different colors on my palette here. I have some red, some blue, some yellow, and what I did is for the background, well, I had some orange as well, so I kind of created some different tones of orange and some different tones of blue. And so I mixed some of the purple in with the blue, so we had some purple specks. I mixed some yellow in with the blue, so we have some green tints. And you can see there, I'm almost done. I'm coming in with some black, and I'm creating those black stripes on our clownfish. And I mean, it did turn out really cute. Now, that one piece of paper towel at the bottom did not look like a fish. So I created a funky mermaid, okay? I created a funky mermaid out of that paper towel. I do think this turned out really cute. When my grandson seen the picture of it, he was like, "Oh, it's clownfish in a coral reef." I will review the final project at the end of the video. Like I shared earlier, this is the Just Our Imagination Challenge, and we are given 3 items to craft with. Our hosts are Kathy Jo with Kathy Jo's DIYs, Brenda with Rustic and Lace DIYs, and Cindi is the guest host from Z9 Designs. Guys, their channels will be linked in the description box below, along with the playlist of the amazing crafters that have joined this challenge. This is one of my favorites because it challenges me. Speaking of challenges, the next craft was my hardest to come up with. Oh goodness, the duster. I had a hard time with this one, and it took me until, I think yesterday to finally just do. No, it was, what is today, Monday? So yeah, it was Saturday I finally figured out what to do with these things. So I went upstairs and I got some of my vintage type clothespins. I cut the Swiffer duster down, I pulled down my metallic paints, and I went with the silver, and I painted little feet on the bottom of these clothespins here. I was going to try, I did try to use some of my silver leaf. It was just too messy to use on the bottom of these clothespins. This actually took 3 coats to go along the feet here. And then I also did it up around the neck area of these ballerinas. I went ahead and got some of my tulle ribbon that I've had in my stash. I have several different colors. I picked one that matched the duster quite well. I cut 5 of those at 14 inches. I have my 16 gauge wire out of my jewelry making supplies, and I cut those down to 5 inches. I found the center of each of those, and on the wire I gave it just a slight curved bend, and then attached the center of my ribbon to the center of my wire, wrapped it with some Fabri-Tac, a little bit of hot glue to the tip, and then a little round wooden bead. Attach that holding with a regular clothespin. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some hot glue and place those arms on the back of our little ballerinas. I'm going to do that with all 5 of them, and then we can go ahead and get started on the rest of this little ballerina by stretching her arms up and over her head like she's getting ready to put a little circle up there. I have these little tiny pom-poms that were in my stash. These are the ones that actually have the little glitter in them. And so I went ahead and just dabbed a little hot glue, put them on the back of the ballerina's head. So it looks like she has little blue buns on each side. I'm going to go ahead and stretch the arms out on each of my little dolls, making sure that they're all attached well, and put the little buns on each of their heads. So once again, with my blue tool here, I'm going to measure out 14 inches. I'm going to actually fold this in half. I will use some regular clothespins to actually hold it in place so that I can come in and just do a running stitch across the top of this tool to create the poofy skirt underneath the ballerina's dress. Now I'm going to do is go ahead and do just a loop stitch on that at the end and just a running stitch across the whole top of that tool. Once I have that done, I'm going to just pull it taut across the top of that tool. I'm going to add just a little bit of glue around the front of that ballerina. I'm going to have the tight little bit of our tool, lay it down in front, and then pull it around the back. I'm going to go ahead and take my remaining thread and just give it a little bit of a stitch back there so that it pulls that dress totally tight in the back. And I'm going to actually just wrap it around a couple times after I lay a little bit of hot glue there so that I don't have to worry about that popping out or the little knot coming through those tiny holes in the tool. And here comes the duster. Now I went ahead and turned it to the back because that one is actually sealed further down that duster mop, and I went ahead and just cut it up as far as I could actually do it. So when I actually create the little skirt that's going to go around this doll, it's going to bend more easily around her waist. A little bit of Fabri-Tac around the top of that. I'm actually putting it on the tool and on top of the tool so that this little duster can sit on top of the tool and you won't see it under the duster. I'm going to pull that nice and tight all the way around using some more Fabri-Tac as I come in to the back side of this doll. I want to make sure that there's not a lot of buildup, so I cut off the extra that doesn't have, it's not open and coming around nicely, and then I went ahead and just finished gluing it all the way around, straightened it out with my fingers, and getting it all nice and straight. Once you have it in place wherever you want it, Now you have an adorable little fairy made out of a dust mop. Oh my. All right, on to project number 3. I got this tray at the Goodwill. It's a Broyhill product, and I got it for $3.99 at the Goodwill. I love the color of it, but the tray was very dirty. So I went ahead and cleaned it up. I took off the handles, and then I found this cow image off creativefabrica.com, and I went ahead and printed that out on my rice paper. I'm going to go ahead and use the water and paintbrush method on here because I want the rice paper to actually feather away from my image. This will help give you a nice blending effect into the other color on your tray. It is very important to be cautious around here because I use I'm using an inkjet printer, and what happens is if you get the water too close to the image, it will bleed and cause the ink to actually push away from where it's at, and it'll cause just some dark lines around where that water stops on your image. So I was very careful having a paper towel under the edge of it so that it would help absorb any extra water around this. Because the tray is blue and I'm using rice paper, I know that when I lay this down and Mod Podge it, I'm going to have a darker scene behind it. So I went ahead and used my pencil, drew out a slight line around where I want this, and then laid some white chalk paint on the center of where I had just did a loose drawing where my image is going to sit. Once that is done, I'm going to go ahead and Mod Podge that down, which I did by laying the Mod Podge down and using the iron-on method to get my image on there nice and straight without any air bubbles in it or tears or wrinkles. I'm using a sponge around the edge of my tray so that it gives it a nice finished look, making sure that nothing kind of goes over the lines on the center there. And of course, I got a little bit on the inside because I'm a messy crafter, guys. I just am. So I'm going to go ahead now and totally cover the whole thing with Mod Podge just to seal it in. Now I have some of my antique wax here, and I'm just mixing it with some extra water to make it much thinner. And I can just lay it on there and just dab it off with a damp paper towel. I'm going over the edges, making sure I don't have any runs down the inside or the outside as I'm laying this down. And then I'm looking down at it going, oh, you didn't fill your holes yet. You have got to get your holes filled. So here I come with my hot glue gun, and I just loaded it in there and I let that totally sit up. You don't see it here, but I did load it again. I let it sit up, and then I used my razor blade just to go along the top of that so that it was straight and there wasn't any gaps or crevices where that hot glue was sitting. When I come back later, you'll see that I actually painted it again, and there wasn't any, you couldn't really tell, you could still tell, I should have sanded it, but that it was covered. Look at there. Now you can still see it if you're looking, but it does not matter because when I put my new handles on, you won't be able to tell. Now I'm coming in again with a little bit of that antique, watered down antique wax, and going over my whole tray around the cow area so that it is nice. And I just struggled with the gloss around it, and that is actually where I put the Mod Podge down the first time. And so I just kept dabbing and kept dabbing, trying to get it to not look so bad. And I just had to move on. Just had to move on. So now I have some Fabri-Tacs here, real Fabri-Tacs here, and I used some of my Fabri-Tac glue, laid it along that edge where the original hole was, and I used my nails and tacked my belt down onto the edge of my tray. Coming back in with my final layer of Mod Podge to finish up my last project. And all 3 projects complete: my fish, my ballerinas, and my cow tray. Look at that's the edge of what I did with the belt. And here you have it, my dears. Here is my upcycled tray with my cow and my leather straps made out of a belt. Here I have my, oh my goodness, this was the Swiffer, and this was the most difficult for me to figure out what to do with, but I think those little ballerinas turned out adorable. And of course the paper towels, oh my word. My little grandson loved making those, and he just thought it was so much fun throwing the wet paper towels onto the canvas. And when he seen the picture, because he was at home, he said, "Oh, look, clownfish in a coral reef." Isn't that sweet? I think they turned out adorable. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching me with this challenge. I do appreciate the time you spend with me, that you take out of your day, and that is a precious time, and I really do appreciate that. I ask, guys, that if you like this video, you give me a thumbs up. If you like this type of content, I ask that you will subscribe to my channel. It does help me out. It does help me out with my channel growing. I do not work outside the home, so this is definitely something that I dive into. So, as always, please subscribe, like, comment, share if you know somebody who would enjoy seeing something like this. And as always, stay safe, God bless, and bye for now.